Could Alberta, Canada's energy giant and heartland of conservative discontent, actually leave Canada and join the United States? Sounds impossible, right? But what if it's already being discussed behind closed doors? What if the signature threshold for a referendum has quietly been lowered? And what if Donald Trump, yes, President Trump, is openly calling Alberta the economic engine America deserves? This isn't fiction anymore. Leaked memos, shifting public opinion, and rising political anger have set off a chain reaction in the West. And with Prime Minister Mark Carney struggling to hold the federation together, Alberta's choice might come faster than anyone expected. Trump's bold statehood pitch, Alberta's growing rebellion, and the very real chance that a Canadian province could become America's 51st state, this is more than politics. This could be history in the making. And here's the twist, it's not just talk anymore. Quiet meetings have taken place. Anonymous U.S. advisors have reportedly flown into Calgary. A secret legal review has allegedly been ordered by Alberta's legislature. This story has everything: money, oil, power, and the potential collapse of Canada as we know it. Alberta has long felt like Canada's neglected child. It fuels the national economy with oil and gas, yet Ottawa's green energy policies have punished its industries. Carbon taxes. Pipeline delays. Federal vetoes. The province's frustrations have reached a boiling point. Premier Danielle Smith recently passed the Alberta Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act, allowing her government to reject federal laws they believe infringe on provincial rights. Even more stunning, the threshold for a provincial referendum has now been slashed to just 177,000 signatures. Independence groups claim they're on track to hit that target by early 2026. Enter Donald Trump. At a recent rally in Texas, Trump shocked the world by saying, Alberta's oil belongs in the U.S., not in the hands of some out-of-touch Canadian government. We'd welcome them with open arms, State 51. Insiders claim Trump's administration has seriously floated the idea of fast-tracking Alberta into the U.S. if it secedes. The offer? Bypass trade tariffs, gain billions in defense subsidies, and integrate into the U.S. energy grid. Because Alberta isn't just oil. It's land, labor, and strategic value. With Trump seeking to build a more energy-secure North America and counter China and Russia, Alberta is beginning to look less like a Canadian province, and more like a geopolitical prize. Not long ago, this idea would have sounded laughable. But today, support for independence is growing. A recent Newsweek poll showed 36% of Albertans support a referendum on independence, and about 18% even favor joining the U.S. if Ottawa doesn't change course. Across Alberta, people are wearing bracelets with American flags. There are bumper stickers that say, 51 now. Local businesses have even begun offering U.S.-Alberta partnership discounts. What was once fringe is now crawling toward the mainstream. Premier Smith herself hasn't endorsed statehood, but she's clearly using the idea as pressure. A leaked strategy memo from her office described Trump's statehood remarks as strategic leverage to force Ottawa's hand. Her message to the federal government: give Alberta more control, or we'll look south. Meanwhile, the Republican Party of Alberta, a renamed version of the old Buffalo Party, is openly pushing for a binding referendum on secession, followed by a second vote on U.S. statehood. Their rallying cry: freedom, fuel, future. And their campaign? It's starting to pick up steam. Of course, there are massive legal hurdles in the way. Under Canada's Clarity Act, no province can leave without a clear majority vote, and both federal and provincial governments must agree on the terms. Then there's the issue of Indigenous sovereignty. First Nations across Alberta have already signaled they would oppose any breakup. And that's just on the Canadian side. For Alberta to join the U.S., Congress would need to approve it. The Senate would need to overcome filibusters. Even with Trump in the White House, it would be a legislative nightmare. Alberta can't just snap its fingers and become a U.S. state. But the fact that the idea is even being discussed, loudly, and in multiple capitals, means the political landscape is shifting. Just as Alberta's political momentum rattles the foundations of Confederation, a new question is emerging from its neighbor to the east: is Saskatchewan next? Once known as a quiet, agricultural province, Saskatchewan is now becoming a wild card in the national unity debate. Over the past 6 months, the province has seen a noticeable shift in political tone, fueled by growing frustration over federal interference in farming regulations, environmental oversight, and resource management. Premier Scott Moe hasn't called for independence outright, but his language has become sharply defiant, echoing Danielle Smith's sovereignty rhetoric almost word for word. In a recent speech, Moe stated, "We will not stand by while Ottawa strips our province of the right to feed the world and fuel the country." That speech wasn't just popular in Saskatchewan, it went viral across conservative circles in both Canada and the U.S. Behind the scenes, Saskatchewan's Legislative Assembly is quietly reviewing a Saskatchewan Autonomy Framework, a set of draft proposals that would mirror Alberta's Sovereignty Act. One clause even includes language around cooperative agreements with neighboring U.S. states in energy and trade infrastructure, raising eyebrows in Ottawa and Washington alike. Adding fuel to the fire, a leaked Saskatchewan Federation of Labor report warned that federal restrictions on fertilizer emissions could cost the province over 15,000 jobs by 2027. Farmers are organizing. Truckers are protesting. And the same populist playbook that ignited Alberta's autonomy movement is now being handed out at grain elevators and cattle auctions from Estevan to Meadow Lake. Trump's 51st state comments may have been aimed at Alberta, but Saskatchewan heard them too. And with American investors quietly buying farmland and energy stakes across the province, the idea of a Western American corridor stretching from Montana through Alberta and into Saskatchewan is no longer science fiction, it's strategic chatter in private boardrooms and political think tanks. What happens if two provinces, side by side, start threatening exit in tandem? That's the question haunting PM Mark Carney's team right now. So, could it really happen? Will Alberta become the 51st star on the American flag? Probably not tomorrow. Or next year. But what's happening now is bigger than just statehood. It's about power. About identity. About Alberta fighting to define its future. With oil prices rising, federal climate policies hardening, and Donald Trump doubling down on North American energy security, Alberta holds more leverage than ever before. Prime Minister Mark Carney may dismiss the talk as absurd. But many in Alberta no longer think it's impossible. Some think it's inevitable. And that should alarm everyone in Ottawa. So, is Alberta really about to become America's next state? Probably not yet. But the fact the question is being taken seriously, debated in legislatures, echoed by presidents, considered by voters, reveals a federation under stress. Canada may still be whole. But the map might not stay that way for long. Keep your eyes on the petitions. Watch the polls. Because in Alberta, the next move might just redraw the border.